In this episode, China accuses the NSA of cyber warfare during the Asian Winter Games. Beijing tightens its grip on rare earth exports, while Meta fights to keep Instagram and WhatsApp. The Pentagon slashes billions in defense contracts. Nvidia brings chipmaking back to U.S. soil, and Harvard defies sweeping federal orders. Plus, a shocking arson attack on Pennsylvania's governor, controversial talks on outsourcing American inmates, and new numbers on autism rates and Social Security cuts. This is your global news briefing. Let's get into it. Tensions between the U.S. and China just escalated in cyberspace. Chinese authorities are accusing the U.S. National Security Agency of launching covert cyber attacks on critical Chinese infrastructure during this year's Asian Winter Games in Harbin. According to Beijing, the NSA exploited software vulnerabilities to target systems tied to China's energy, communications, and transportation networks. In some cases, Chinese officials claim the agency masked its operations using foreign IP addresses and anonymously rented servers, making the activity hard to trace. What's more, China has gone a step further publicly, naming 3 individuals it alleges were directly involved: Catherine Wilson, Robert Snelling, and Stephen Johnson. It's even offering financial rewards for information leading to their capture. China says the attacks were meant to sabotage and paralyze the country's infrastructure during a high-profile international event. The U.S., for its part, has not responded to the specific allegations, but has repeatedly warned about Chinese cyber attacks on American critical infrastructure, especially those designed to disable U.S. military capabilities in a future conflict. Now the tables have turned. China is taking its grievances global, accusing the U.S. of the very same conduct it's long been accused of, and demanding that Washington immediately stop what it calls malicious activity. In a move with major global consequences, China has halted the export of several key rare earth minerals. These materials, including samarium, terbium, and yttrium, are essential to manufacturing everything from electric vehicles and semiconductors to military-grade jet engines and radar systems. Chinese officials say the restrictions are part of routine export licensing reforms, but the timing has raised eyebrows. Just as new U.S. tariffs take effect, Chinese ports have reportedly begun freezing or blocking rare earth shipments, especially to the U.S. While some suppliers have been told to wait 2 months for export licenses, others say their shipments are being turned away outright. Analysts believe this is a calculated show of strength, Beijing's way of signaling that if economic war is on the table, China has levers it's not afraid to pull. The U.S. depends heavily on China for these rare earth elements. In response, former President Trump is preparing an executive order aimed at expanding deep-sea mining of these minerals in U.S. waters, a long-term move to reduce dependence on Chinese supply chains. This could mark the start of a rare earth standoff, one with implications for national defense, high-tech manufacturing, and the future of the green economy. The Federal Trade Commission has launched one of its most aggressive antitrust cases in years, this time targeting Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp. The agency argues that Meta's past acquisitions were designed not to innovate, but to eliminate competition. The spotlight is on Instagram and WhatsApp, 2 platforms the FTC says were deliberately purchased to neutralize threats to Facebook's dominance. Emails from CEO Mark Zuckerberg, made public in court, show him describing Instagram as a competitor that could be very disruptive and warning that WhatsApp was building a network that could become dangerous to Meta's core business. The FTC is now seeking to force Meta to divest both platforms, arguing that the acquisitions have led to reduced innovation and less consumer choice. Meta says this ignores today's competitive landscape, where platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and Apple's iMessage continue to dominate in key markets. Still, the stakes are enormous. Instagram alone is projected to generate over $37 billion in U.S. ad revenue this year, more than half of Meta's total. WhatsApp, though less profitable, is Meta's most used app globally and increasingly vital to business communications and e-commerce in developing markets. A ruling in favor of the FTC could redefine the boundaries of big tech and set a precedent that goes far beyond Meta. In a sweeping move to trim military spending, the Pentagon has canceled more than $5 billion worth of existing contracts. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said the cuts target what he called bureaucratic bloat contracts for consulting, software, and non-essential support services. Among the canceled agreements, Deloitte and Booz Allen's multi-million-dollar contracts for military healthcare consulting, cloud service reselling by Accenture, business process support for the Navy, and a DARPA help desk contract. Contracts tied to climate initiatives, COVID-19 responses, and diversity programs were also eliminated, signaling a pivot toward a leaner, more combat-focused defense budget. Hegseth said the funds will be redirected toward actual warfighters and their families, citing the need to reduce reliance on expensive outside contractors. This marks a significant policy shift, reflecting the administration's broader push to cut federal spending and shrink the civilian footprint of the military. Nvidia is bringing chipmaking back to U.S. soil in a landmark move that could shift the balance of the global semiconductor industry. For the first time, the company will manufacture its AI supercomputers and cutting-edge Blackwell chips in the United States. The company is developing over 1 million square feet of production space in Arizona and Texas, partnering with Foxconn in Houston and Wistron in Dallas. Early manufacturing has already begun in Phoenix, with full output expected in just over a year. Nvidia's move follows mounting trade tensions and tariff threats targeting the tech industry. While smartphones and laptops are currently exempt from the latest U.S. tariffs, Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick has warned that stricter rules on semiconductors are on the horizon, especially for foreign firms. By moving manufacturing stateside, Nvidia is not just dodging geopolitical risk, it's doubling down on America's role in the future of artificial intelligence. With demand for AI processing power skyrocketing, this shift could be a game changer. Harvard University is taking a stand against sweeping federal mandates, and it's costing the school billions. After refusing to comply with new Department of Education requirements, Harvard's $2.3 billion in federal funding has been frozen. The federal orders demanded Harvard overhaul its admissions process to eliminate race-based criteria, report student activities to immigration authorities, and allow political audits of academic departments. University President Alan Garber rejected the directives, calling them a direct assault on academic freedom and university autonomy. He's now pursuing a $750 million private loan to cover shortfalls and has joined Columbia University in suing the federal government. Critics say the Biden-era culture wars are being reversed, and elite institutions are now under pressure to conform to a very different political climate. The case could shape how far Washington can go in dictating campus policies and how much independence universities can retain in the years ahead. A man has been arrested for attempting to burn down the Pennsylvania governor's mansion in what authorities are calling a politically motivated arson attack. According to investigators, 30-year-old Cody Ballmer scaled the fence of the governor's residence around 1:30 a.m. Sunday morning, carrying Molotov cocktails and flammable chemicals. Governor Josh Shapiro, his wife, their 4 children, and several guests were asleep inside. Ballmer reportedly told a former partner about his plan, prompting her to alert law enforcement. His mother later said he struggles with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia and had stopped taking his medication. No one was injured, but the fire caused millions in property damage. Ballmer now faces multiple charges, including attempted homicide, arson, and terrorism. The Trump administration is exploring a bold and controversial idea, outsourcing American prisoners to overseas facilities. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed the proposal is on the table, saying the U.S. might send the worst of the worst inmates to other countries, potentially saving billions in incarceration costs. El Salvador is one of the countries in discussions. Its president, Nayib Bukele, offered to house U.S. prisoners in high-security megafacilities like the one he built to combat gangs in his own country. Attorney General Pam Bondi is reviewing the legal and logistical hurdles involved. While supporters say it could ease pressure on overcrowded prisons, critics warn it could raise serious human rights and constitutional concerns. Roughly 22,000 IRS employees, about a quarter of the agency's workforce, have accepted buyouts and early retirements, according to 2 sources close to the agency. The move comes as part of the Trump administration's larger campaign to reduce the size of the federal government. Officials say the departures were voluntary, but critics argue that years of low morale and toxic work environments helped drive the exodus. The IRS has struggled with backlog, fraud, and technology failures in recent years. With fewer employees, the strain may only increase. Back-channel talks between the U.S. and Iran are gaining momentum. Officials from both countries met for over 2 hours this week in indirect negotiations over Iran's rapidly advancing nuclear program. Another session is set for April 19th in Rome. Iran is now enriching uranium to 60% purity, just shy of weapons-grade levels, and has enough material to build several bombs. President Trump has warned that if diplomacy fails, the U.S. will consider targeted airstrikes to halt Iran's nuclear capabilities. With tensions high and time running out, these talks could determine whether the next phase of U.S. Iran relations is diplomatic or military. Autism diagnoses in the U.S. are climbing again. According to new data from the CDC, 1 in 31 children are now being diagnosed on the autism spectrum, a sharp rise from 1 in 36 just 5 years ago. The findings are based on records from schools and health systems in 14 states and Puerto Rico, and show notable increases across nearly all racial and ethnic groups. Boys are still 4 times more likely than girls to be diagnosed, but experts say rising awareness and improved screening explain much of the increase. Officials continue to stress that vaccines are not a cause. Instead, the uptick reflects better identification, especially in minority communities that were historically underdiagnosed. President Biden is sounding the alarm over dramatic cuts to the Social Security Administration. The SSA has confirmed plans to lay off 7,000 employees and shift oversight of some operations to the Department of Government Efficiency. Biden accused the Trump administration of taking a hatchet to the agency, saying millions of seniors, disabled Americans, and low-income families could face delays or disruptions in benefits. Advocates say they're already seeing longer wait times and more technical errors in the system. The cuts come as part of a broader effort to streamline federal agencies, but critics argue that essential services are now being sacrificed in the process. And finally, New York Attorney General Letitia James is under federal investigation after purchasing a property in Virginia, alongside a former staffer. The $240,000 deal has drawn scrutiny over whether James violated residency or ethics rules by holding office in one state while investing in another. The Trump administration referred the case for investigation, raising questions about transparency and oversight. James has dismissed the probe as politically motivated. But as the state's top prosecutor and a longtime critic of Donald Trump, her legal battles now appear to be cutting both ways. That's all for tonight's news update. Thank you for joining us. We'll continue to monitor these stories and bring you the latest developments. Stay safe, stay informed, and have a good night. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update.